Hi, everybody. This is Wes Craven, and
Kevin Williamson,
I'm the director and
writer.
and this is Scream.
Scream.
And we're here to sort of fake our way through this. This was the first 5 days of shooting on a little brand new house, actually about 3 years old, and it looks like it's been there for 20 years, built on a 30-acre vineyard. Drew Barrymore introducing our picture, and in a kind of Hitchcockian way, wouldn't you say?
Yes, very much so.
Since you wrote it.
Yes. I'd always in my head imagined that you could get sort of a lead name to play this part. It would be really shocking. And I'm so glad that it sort of turned out that way. And then we got someone like Drew Barrymore, whose performance I think is phenomenal.
Right, she was great, terrific. And the house is kind of a star, too. I mean, it wonderfully sort of typified the rooms inside with the windows looking out to the outside. So right away we're always reminding the audience that there's a big world out there and showing the little swing there creaking. You wrote that, didn't you, Kevin?
No, there wasn't a squeaking swing, was there? I think that was one of Wes's little touches.
So we had a lot of fun. It's fun, sort of vamping on a really great script, which is what Kevin gave us. This was a script that caused a huge bidding war in Hollywood, and I think over one weekend it was sold for a gigantic amount of money.
Originally titled Scary Movie.
Right. Which we all loved, and when Miramax changed it to Scream, we all thought that's really a stupid title, and now we all love Scream.
Yeah, it's amazing how that tide turns, isn't it? But I've come to love the title Scream.
Me too.
I can't imagine it being anything else at this point.
No, the one with the guy in the white.
Now, cinematically, this is a sort of introduction of themes here with the pulling up the knife and the expanding clock here, which used the popcorn holder as the clock to the scene, going from sort of normal expansion into sort of overkill. He also wrote some wonderful lines here, which at one time I took out about the first nightmare was great and
the rest sucked.
The rest sucked, because I thought that would make me look like an egomaniac since I was directing the film. But Kevin reminded me that I directed the seventh, and that was included in the films that sucked.
It's also the point at which the dialogue becomes sort of self-referential and self-aware, and it sort of lets the audience know that, we're aware of that the horror movies do exist in our film.
Right.
And,
which was one of the breakthrough things of the films. We talk about actual films and a lot of different films and a lot of different film actors.
Look, I gotta go.
I always thought if you actually had a movie about kids who have seen every horror movie ever made, then that may be the end to scaring the audience in the way that the whole world, these people actually live in a world where all these horror movies have played, and they grew up with their VCRs and they're aware of all this stuff. And what do you do if you get a phone call in the middle of the night and you're in the middle of nowhere? What do you do? And this is definitely an homage to When a Stranger Calls, which was, I think, had a very shocking opening.
Right.
Listen, asshole.
No, you listen, you little bitch.
Now, this is also this moment is very, very important in the telephone voice, which we cast for weeks and weeks and weeks. We finally found
I remember that.
this wonderful guy, Roger Jackson, is it, who does a lot of narration and radio voices out of San Francisco, I believe, and he just did the voice to a T. And got that very chilling sense to his, it's very hard to find sometimes people to play evil because they just, they don't want to go quite that far into their dark side. But Roger really was able to get there really wonderfully and puts a great tone in the whole movie.
It was really amazing watching it because, we were all outside in the rain at this point while this is being filmed, and Roger was outside in the rain on a phone talking to her.
Right. We never let Drew see Roger at all. She never met him.
Oh, that's right.
She didn't know who he was. We also had to do these calls over a real telephone, and I think about 3 a.m. we got a call from the sheriff's department demanding that we say who we were because they thought there was an actual killer tormenting somebody. I enjoyed using that very special blue of the television screen behind Drew as sort of a theme of the sort of tapeness of the way so many of us see movies, and the way that color sort of suggests we're about to see a film.
Or else my boyfriend will be here any second and he'll be pissed when he finds out.
I thought you didn't have a boyfriend.
I lied. I do have a boyfriend and he'll be here any second, so your ass better be good.
Sure.
This also had a great, I think, introduction of a cellular phone as an instrument of a demented killer, which is was pretty new, I think, and it's so much a part of our lives. That's one of the things this film did again, was take things that are parts of our lives that aren't used, hadn't been used yet in a film, and say, here's a phone that can put a man anywhere, right outside your window, but whether he's out front or out back, you don't know, and he can be moving.
On the patio lights. Again.
And of course, the huge tease of
One of the great things
turning the light back on again.
for me was to watch you work with Drew and how you brought her to this level on repeated takes, take after take after take, and she was always there. It was really, for me, it was a great learning experience to watch you in action here.
Yeah, well, it was a matter of Drew putting an enormous amount of trust in me, and we had a couple key sentences or key situations that we would refer to. The night before we started shooting, she told me a horrible story of a newspaper article of a dog being burned by its owner and set afire. And she started crying as she was telling me this. So every time that I needed her to get over that edge into complete, tears, I would just say, "Drew, I'm lighting the lighter," and she would just burst into tears. So not everybody will tell you a story like that. That's so close to their heart. Drew is very much of an animal lover, so that allowed us to just get to that place of sort of ultimate horror, where people are doing things you can't comprehend why they would ever do such a thing. This is incidentally one of the areas that was censored by the Motion Picture Association of America, Kevin's entrails coming out. Kevin is the actor outside who, not your entrails, but the actor outside playing Steve, who was one of the very last contenders for the part of Billy, and a great actor who has gone on to doing a lot of very interesting roles. So we gave him this sort of tribute of playing this. I don't know whether it was really a tribute because he got to sit out in the cold all night with his intestines hanging out. But
Sipping coffee, which that image is embedded in my brain.
Right, yeah. And this is also a great thing. I've sat in many audiences watching them respond to this sort of quiz, and she gets the answers right, and then she gets this answer right, you think, and then you realize, no, this killer really knows his movies.
Then you should know Jason's mother, Mrs. Voorhees, was the original killer. Jason didn't show
I've always thought that the scariest killers are the killers that are really smart. And this one, gets you on your SATs.
That question, I was in a bar one night where they were having movie trivia, and if you could stump the audience, you got a free drink. And this is the question that I stumped the audience with. Oh, here we go. There it was. The MPAA censored.
Right. A
And
lot of
that-
times the MPA has just said to me in this film especially, "Oh, it's just too intense. Take the intensity back." And we went through this protracted battle of me sending back various cuts where I refused to take anything out, and they would say, "Well, you still have an NC-17 then."
final question.
That went on for some time, didn't it?
It went on about a lifetime, yeah.
Answer the question.
It's very difficult now making a film of this sort where you're really going into the dark side of humanity, because the MPAA sort of looks at every film as, I don't know what, sort of propaganda for the good life. And if you go really into the dark side of the way human beings often are, they get very upset and say, well, this is going to push some kid over the edge, which I don't believe. I really found the audiences respond to truth in films. Well, this is also breaking the barrier here. To go back to sort of the themes, we've established all this house with glass everywhere, and when he throws the chair through the window, you know that there's no longer any barrier of safety whatsoever. Another thing that I did here with camera is have her backing up in the standard horror film way, where in every case, if somebody backs out of a door in a shot like this, you know they're going to back right into the killer, and we didn't do it. So, going from your script, which so often set up the cliche situations and then stood them on their head. Nothing you did, Kevin, which was difficult. You wrote this part for a masked killer, but you never accounted for how nobody could guess who he was by looking at his feet or hands.
I
So-
know. I mean, one of the first script meetings I had with Wes was, well, he's wearing a mask, but what else is he wearing? I mean, we're gonna be able to tell who the killer is just by the other clothes on his body. And I just kind of looked at him and said, not my problem. I'm the writer.
Right. So we went through many, many costume permutations on this. And for a long while, because Kevin had said in the script it's a ghost mask, we were going with a white figure. And at the last minute, our producer, Miriam Manolina, said, I think black would look a lot scarier. So we went with black, and there we were. The mask itself we found in a house that we were location scouting at, and it was just an off-the-shelf item that is available in just about any dime store around Halloween time. This is another MPA moment. They wanted this shot out of the film in the worst way, and I just claimed this was the only take that we did because Drew was so wrought up over it. Which, of course, was a bald-faced lie, but I'll do anything to get my shots in the film.
It is a huge moment of intensity, you have to admit.
No, it is.
And which is so shocking. It's so great. But
yeah, people can't believe it's happened, and they think, well, maybe she was just stabbed in the shoulder, and then you see her a moment later, and she's clearly mortally wounded. This is about the time the audience just starts to sit there with their mouths open, feeling raw terror.
Because at first you think, well, the idea is that her boyfriend got killed, but it's Drew Barrymore, so she's going to live. She's going to make it.
Right.
And here she goes. She's still alive. She's still trucking.
Then maybe she'll be discovered by her parents. Oh, no, I'm too busy talking about the flowers and the fish at dinner.
Jesus.
And then there he is.
This was kind of a little added moment. I just said, let's have her pull his mask off, and just stare like she knows who it is, but she doesn't say.
Casey.
I just felt for that character that would be the most profound moment when she knew who it was and had no explanation for why it was happening.
And also it begins the mystery.
Right.
I thought it was a great beginning.
Yes, we used probably more Steadicam in this whole sequence than we did in the rest of the picture. Going for that sort of very fluid, nothing's locked down anymore sort of feeling.
Casey, baby.
And she will just not let the phone go.
Right. Which gave that last tenuous contact between parent and child. And then coming up with the final shot of this sequence is where the MPA really went berserk, and we ended up having to cut frames out of every shot and really shorten it much, much more than I would have cared to.
And that line there, of course, is lifted from Halloween.
Right.
The Mackenzie line. Here we go.
That's a real-time shot. And in the film, we had to cut every other frame, so it was 50% faster. Now you think things are going to be peaceful, and then immediately we introduce the sound outside, and the audience is thinking, oh my God, I'm not going to kill somebody else.
They've just caught their breath, and now here we go again.
It's just me.
What are you doing here?
Sorry, don't hate me. Were you sleeping there?
This is the introduction, of course, of Skeet Ulrich's character, Billy, and throughout the film he goes in and out of being the killer in the minds of the audience, I'm sure, many times. And it's kind of a tribute to his skill that he's able to appear very suspicious at one moment and sort of win your heart back the next moment.
Oh, well. I'm hitting the sack. My flight leaves first thing in the morning. Now, the expo runs all weekend, so I won't be back till Sunday. There's cash on the table.
He also wrote into the script this very weird thing of one door opening partially and blocking another door, which we searched for endlessly throughout
That's the way
Northern California, and never found a single house that was like
well, the
that. So-
bedroom I had growing up had that thing where if you opened the closet door and someone opened the bedroom door, it just jammed the whole mess, and you couldn't get in or out or anything.
We ended up having to build a whole wall on this house just to make a closet that had a door like that.
I've never snuck through your bedroom window.
Right, and now that it's out of your system.
When I was home watching television, The Exorcist was on. It got me thinking of you.
It did?
Yeah.
It's funny, I've had numberless people say, this must have been a sort of a tip of the hat to Johnny Depp. because he was in his first role in Nightmare on Elm Street, but it really wasn't. I felt Skeet was very much his own man, and he didn't even remind me of Johnny that much. I think he's really a very subtle, very skilled, gifted actor. And this, I believe, is one of his first starring roles, although he had already shot Paul Schrader's Touch just before he came onto our set.
You thought you would climb my window and we'd have a little raw footage.
No, I wouldn't.
And of course, we're also introducing our leading lady. I shouldn't neglect Nev, who
I thought maybe we could do a little.
was at the end of a long, long search for somebody that would have this kind of character that at once was innocent and yet had tremendous strength. And I think part of it was just that Nev has a long, long history of dance and training in dance. So she has a great physicality, very, very great, physical strength and stamina, which she would need entirely for this role.
Here's where we also, story-wise, set up the Virgin.
Right. Right, even their kisses, and they did this themselves, were very tentative and sort of awkward. They try to hold hands and don't quite make it. And of course, she rebuffs him here.
Okay, time's up. Stud butt.
Which is just one of the standard cliches of the genre. The whole idea of the virgin being the heroine, the good girl, the girl who lives. And so I wanted to set up the idea, well, what would happen if you had a woman in one of these movies who actually did go all the way? Would she live? Would the audience, think for a second she's going to die, she's going to go on? What's going to happen? It was just one more way that I wanted to take the rules of the genre and sort of spin them.
Yeah, in fact, later you have a character, Randy, saying what the rules are, and you must never have sex because that means you'll be dead. And of course, at the very moment, that's the moment that Sid's upstairs having her tryst with Billy.
Hey, Billy. Would you settle for a PG-13 relationship?
What's that?
I've heard many groans in audiences from young men here when we didn't show this. But again, it's sort of that tease of the virginal character.
And also the idea that I was really happy that you didn't, because you always see TNA in these type of movies, and I think it was a refreshing change that, and also I think it sort of added to what we were trying to do with the whole genre.
Right. Oh wait, I have to talk about this shot. This is our trick shot, a big crane shot coming down, but the cameraman is standing on the crane in a Steadicam, and he just steps off right here and continues the shot down the sidewalk. There's Linda Blair in the background talking about things of occult nature happening in the school.
She was great.
Yeah.
And there's the introduction of Gail Weathers.
Right. Courtney actually had found a pack of gum that had gum exactly the same color as her suit. She was very disappointed when we didn't stay in the shot that long.
Casey Becker and Steve Orris were killed.
And now we start to introduce the other characters in the film. Tatum,
Rose McGowan.
who dyed her hair.
Not anymore.
We were dyeing everybody's hair in this movie to make them sort of contrast each other.
Oh my God. Do they know who did it? Fucking.
I was talking to somebody at dinner the other night and said this was his favorite line in the whole movie. When Nev says, she sits next to me in English, and Rose says, not anymore, she doesn't. Which is like sort of that cynical, sharp edge to this film that runs throughout.
Yeah, I certainly, was it never meant to be anything but a wicked film?
That's true, and I think it's very unusual in that sense that a lot of the kids are very uncaring, very centered around their own lives. And in some ways it sets off Nev's character even more so.
Who's up next? Sidney Prescott.
Well, this moment always gets a sort of a chuckle and amazed response from the audience when they see the Fonz up there. And Henry is represented by my agent, and we met about a year ago. And I was really astonished when he said he wanted to be in this film. But he played it with a sort of malicious glee, which I thought was really amazing. He's just about over the edge here on touching a bit too much. Even the sheriff sort of gives him a look here. Which the actors just instinctively went to. It was really great.
Yeah, it's sort of the beginning of the red herrings.
Right. Exactly. And that's also introducing David Arquette's character, Deputy Dewey. Now, this scene with the dialogue was one of the reasons that we were thrown out of the high school in, in Santa Rosa. When the school board read this scene, they gave us a huge note. We cannot have a movie in which teenagers are sitting around talking about bodies being gutted and emptied out. And this resonated for about a month on location. Everybody getting wrought up about it, and finally we were...
All the letters in the newspaper, everyone was writing letters to the editor, and all the local newspapers were up in arms, and the whole community sort of jumped onto the bandwagon.
Right, like kids never talked like this before. One of the great ironies of it was that in the middle of all this school board saying you're showing the wrong thing to our kids and setting the wrong example, one of them was arrested for beating his wife, which I thought was a wonderful ironic touch.
Yeah, it was really, I find it interesting that the high school wanted us there. All the students had signed a petition. The local community seemed to support us for the income that was brought to the community as a result of filming there. And then you've got it, you know, the morality is the prudence of 5 people was deciding the fate of our movie. It was really scary.
Yeah, it was. There was a definite undertone to it that was about 2 steps from starting to book burn, you know.
Nobody said you did. Thanks, buddy. Besides, it takes a man to do something like that. Yo, I'm gonna gut your ass in a second, kid. Tell me something.
Did you really put her liver in the mailbox? Because I heard that they found her liver in the mailbox next to her spleen and
This scene was important for me also because I sort of introduced the idea that the character of Stu had dated Casey, which ultimately you have when you go back and you say, why did they kill Casey?
Right.
And there's
Right,
your
exactly.
answer.
That was also the introduction of Jamie Kennedy, who I think had only done Romeo and Juliet just before that. He was the guy with the pink hair. But and it also was the first case where I had actors coming up saying, "Can I try one take for myself?" And he came up with that Jerry Lewis imitation. It was so great. I also like this because she goes to the mailbox right after talking about putting the liver in the mailbox. So she sort of has to check.
What a location.
Yeah, fantastic location. This is all shot in the wine country around Santa Rosa in Sonoma County, California.
I want this house. It was for sale, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I think we just about bought it between the rental fees and the repair fees. There's a little boom shadow on that railing there, if anybody caught it. It's the only one in the movie. This is, again, playing with the in and out. You hear the dogs barking way back in the background, and suddenly she doesn't feel quite so safe, even though she doesn't know why. She ends up behind glass, very much like the glass in the opening scene. And another cliche situation where we bring them down, the music is sort of building, and as she opens the closet door, where so many villains always lunge out, nothing happens. Trying all the time to keep the audience kind of off balance as you did in the script. It's a little cameo coming up from our casting agent.
Lisa
The bodies of 17-year-old Casey Becker and her 18-year-old boyfriend, Stephen Orth, were discovered late last night by the girl's parents.
The Woodsboro double murder case. Authorities are baffled by the lack of clues and the savage...
The town's in shock, and no one can quite believe what has happened here. Although this is not the first time this small community of Woodsboro has endured such tragedy. Only a year ago, Maureen Prescott, wife and mother, was found raped and murdered not far from this peaceful town square.
This is where we start to create the backstory.
Right, which made this such an interesting character, this whole theme of Sidney's mother. Sidney as the victim, the mother, of course, is the original victim, and the mother sort of kept as this, wonderful, pure mother that was lost, and in the whole course of the movie is kind of Sidney's readjustment of her reality based on other people's information about the mother.
And I thought up to this point we've created the present. Now we sort of introduce the past, and hopefully it'll just sort of propel the audience to want to know what's going to lay ahead. Long day's journey into night.
Hello?
Practice ran late. I'm on my way, okay?
Here comes the line that I get harassed about more than any other line in the movie.
The Tom Cruise line?
Yeah. Well, that one and one other one that will be popping up real soon, too.
I'm gonna swing by the video store. I was thinking Tom Cruise and all the right moves. You know, if you pause it just right, you can see his penis.
Whatever, just hurry, okay?
Ta-ta, Sid.
Tatum, just get in the car.
Hello, Sydney.
Hi. Who is this?
You tell me.
Well, I have no idea.
Scary night, isn't it? With the murders and all, it's like right out of a horror movie or something.
Randy, you gave yourself away. Are you calling from work? Because Tatum's
There's one of your great, I think, lines or little speeches coming up here where she dismisses the entire horror genre because of its kind of predictability.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Oh, come on, you know I don't watch that shit.
And its depiction of women.
No.
Right.
No, it's just, what's the point? They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Are you alone in the house?
Randy, that's so unoriginal. I'm disappointed in you.
Maybe that's because I'm not Randy.
This is a great setup. I mean, at the same time, you're saying this is not a movie you're watching. This is real life, talking about movies. She's ending up doing the things that she's even aware of that you should not be doing. For instance, going out onto the porch, you know, when you hear the voice. I just love those audience members that just don't go out there, and they're yelling at the screen.
Oh, yeah? Well, I call your bluff.
I love that music cue. I think Marco.
Yeah, we should mention Marco Beltrami.
So where are you?
First-time composer of a feature film. He's done some television work. Very young man. Was found by my assistant, Julie Pleck, when she was on the internet and in a thing called Hollywood Cafe. She was asking who they knew that was new and fresh and wonderful as a composer. And several people mentioned Marco's name. And I sent for her some music from him and just heard it and loved it, and we hired him. He did a fantastic job.
Incredible job.
Can you see me right now? Ah, okay. What am I doing? Huh? Huh? What am I doing? Hello? Nice try, Randy. Tell Tatum to hurry up, okay? Bye now.
If you hang up on me, you'll die just like your mother.
Do you want to die, Sydney? Your mother sure didn't.
Fuck you, you creep.
Now, of course, here we pay off the way we said, no, nobody's ever going to come out of the closet. Boom. And here's where you also learn that Sid, you know, can handle her own a bit.
Ooh, head bash.
Ouch.
She can't get the chain off the door, so what does she do?
She has to run upstairs, just as she said one never should do.
Oh no, we set up the doors.
There was always a fine line in staging these scenes between making the killer very scary or making him appear dumb because he gets hit over the head or smashed with a door or something. So we actually had a shot there of him being hit over the head with a picture and falling back down the stairs, but it started to make him look too much like a clown.
And also, in this moment is where she types in her location, which is 34 Elm Street, which we cut out for, I guess, time.
Yeah, time.
He's in the house. No, he's in the house. He's gonna go. He's gonna go.
He's gone. He's gone. It's all right. What? Sid, what? Whoa, wait, Sid, wait! Hold on! Sid, come back!
That's a great moment. I think it gets a big jump out of the audience. It was David Arquette just improvising madly there. I just said, scream as loud as she does, and he did this whole thing. That seemed just so natural. It's a very funny and very human moment. And of course now Billy is the suspect, and everybody's convinced that it's him. There's a note on this actor, Joseph Whipp, I've worked with many times, and he was the kind of the sergeant in the original Nightmare on Elm Street that appeared at the house at the end and was noticing that Nancy was locked into her house. So the backstory that I put in is that he was so upset by the events of Nightmare on Elm Street that he moved to a small town in Northern California.
Here comes Tatum in her appropriate red bug.
Sorry, I was late. Are you alright?
Tatum, you can't be here. There's official crime scene.
It's okay.
Her dad's out of town, all right? She's staying with us tonight.
Does Mom know?
Yes, doofus.
Let's get you out of here.
Established that they're brother and sister.
Right.
You won't believe this. Creepy, huh?
I think a nice moment for Rose McGowan too. Just she has a great comedic flair. That's wonderful to watch.
Here's sort of, this is pretty, even though we've seen Gail Weathers before, this is pretty much her introduction.
Right. And also Earl Brown, who plays her cameraman.
It was very important that I wanted to nail her in one line, and it's coming up.
Yeah, you're a real pain in the ass. Leave me alone.
Where's she going?
Look, Kenny,
Yeah?
I know that you're about 50 pounds overweight, but when I say hurry, please interpret that as move your fat tub of lard ass now!
There's no mistake who this woman is at this point. So now we can build from that, and change it, and add a layer to it.
The art department had a great time with Dewey's desk here. They had a hat on top of his monitor that said Boob Patrol with two big breasts on it, and everything about it was just totally wacko. I mean, it's like this guy has the mentality of one part of his mentality, at least, is a 16-year-old. But he also rounded the character with a really kind of beautiful understanding and reliable self, too.
Let me ask you this. What are you doing with a cellular telephone, son?
Everybody's got one, Sheriff. No, I didn't make those calls, I swear.
Well, why don't you check the phone bill, for Christ's sake? Call Vital Phone Comp. They got the records of every number dialed.
Thanks, Hank. We're on top of it. What were you doing over at Sydney's house tonight?
I wanted to see her, that's all.
And last night? Sydney said you crawled through a window last night, too.
You went out last night? I was watching TV. I got bored. I decided to go for a ride.
Did you happen to ride by Casey Becker's house?
No. No, I didn't. Sheriff, I didn't kill anybody.
The idea here for me was that I point the finger at him so blatantly that the audience immediately knows, no, he's not the killer. And then in the very next beat, you spend the rest of the movie challenging that.
Right, because there's something in his look here that you don't know whether it's somebody that's been terribly hurt or whether it's really a killer. This actor Earl Brown here, I've used twice before. He was the morgue attendant in the 7th Nightmare. And he also was the cop with the dog in Vampire in Brooklyn.
Sidney Prescott.
Hey, watch her, Larry.
Hey, don't touch my breast.
Dealing with you?
Come on. Tell him.
Just wait for
Sydney.
the lawyer, Billy.
Sydney, come on, you know me.
Come on.
Sydney, look at me.
Gives me trouble.
Come on.
I'm gonna get you out of here, okay? You okay?
We sell this costume every 5 and dime in the state. There's no way to track the purchase.
Father Death.
What about that cellular phone bill?
Well, we're pulling Loomis's account. We won't know anything until the morning.
Oh, come on.
That was my little misdirection. Put the word father in there. Maybe everybody will think that it's her father, Sid's father, who's mysteriously missing.
For the entire film.
God damn it, Dewey.
What did Mama tell you? When I wear this badge, you treat me like a man of the law.
I'm sorry, Deputy Dewey boy, but we're ready to go now, okay?
Whoa. Take him out the back way. Avoid that circus.
Come on. Don't touch me.
He's my superior.
Janitor's your superior.
And that last little line was looped. I'll take full credit for it, which I had nothing to do with whatsoever.
All these people in the background here are not paid extras. They're all the people of the town. I just saw them all standing behind our kind of police barricades. And I said, oh, let's just use them as the spectators.
Free extras.
There she is. Sydney! Hi. Some night, what happened? Are you all right?
She's not answering any questions, all right? Just leave us alone.
No, Tatum, it's okay. She's just doing her job, right, Kim?
Yes, that's right.
So, how's the book? Well, it'll be out later this year.
Oh,
I'll look for it. I'll send you a copy.
My agent told me that the moment when I did this in the script, that's when he knew the script would sell. I don't know what he meant by that, but that's
Courtney had a great time with that. She loved getting punched.
I'll send you a copy. Bam! Bitch went down. I'll send you a copy. Bam! Sid, super bitch. You are so cool.
Thought you might want some ice for that right hook.
Thanks.
Note the picture of Grant Goodeve in the background.
Try to get some sleep.
Yeah.
I love all these. Like I say, they had a nice time with the art design.
Yeah,
a lot of
we
fun making Tatum a little retro.
Bruce Miller was our production designer. Did I think just a fantastic job throughout.
Telephone, honey.
Who is it? For Sid.
My dad?
I also like the way Tatum in this scene actually becomes a little girl.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas before we've seen her as this tough little hard-edged girl, and in her world she's got a bunny rabbit and her hair's up.
Hello?
Hello, Sydney.
She's not safe anywhere.
Boyfriend. An innocent guy doesn't stand a chance with you.
Leave me alone.
Looks like you fingered the wrong guy. Again.
Who are you?
Don't worry. You'll find out soon enough. I promise.
What?
No, I kept Dewey, of course, out of sight until the conversation was over, so everybody could suspect it was Dewey in his room.
Exactly.
This town is Healdsburg, California, which is one of the small sort of wine country towns up in Northern California. Great, wonderful town, very open to us, and everybody was really wonderful to us, as opposed to some other towns up there.
Now the audience knows that whoever is killing people also killed her mother. So now we've connected the heroine to the killer. We've upped the stakes.
This is Liev Schreiber, an actor who recently had a starring role in Ransom as one of the kidnappers.
He was also in a lot of independent films this past year, Walking and Talking, one of them, which was a great movie.
Cellular bill was clean. He didn't make those calls. We're checking every cellular account in the county. Any calls made to you or Casey Becker are being cross-referenced. It's gonna take some time, but we'll find him.
See, here's Dewey being very real, I think, which is fun to have this character have so many different sides to him. We're coming up on our little Linda Blair cameo here.
Don't worry, Sid, it's school. You'll be safe here.
So how does it
feel to be almost brutally butchered?
Hey, now leave her alone.
People want to know. They have a right to know. How does it feel?
She just wants to get an education.
It's a lot of fun. I work with Linda. The first television movie I ever got to direct, the first time I ever shot 35 millimeters, was a film starring her called A Stranger in the House.
I remember that movie.
Like 1979. It was a television movie for NBC, I think.
Stop right there.
I'm not here to fight. I just need to talk.
Kenny, camera now.
Off the record, no cameras. Forget it. Please. You owe me.
I had never seen Courtney Cox play a role like this, and it was, I think, so nice to see her sort of playing against type, certainly against the role she plays on Friends. She ran with it.
Yeah, she really did. I think a lot of people have said how much they like her in this role, and how much she's impressed them as a real actress.
Do you still think he's innocent?
Your testimony put him away. It doesn't.
And that one little close-up of Kenny the cameraman sort of throws him in the bag as a suspect.
Mm-hmm.
Identify him, yes.
Have you talked to Cotton?
Many times.
And has his story changed?
Not one word. He admits to having sex with your mother, but that's all.
He's lying. She never would have touched him. He raped her, and then he butchered her. Her blood was all over his coat.
He was drunk that night. He left his coat at your house after your mother seduced him.
I saw him leave wearing it.
No, you saw someone leave wearing that coat. The same someone who planted it in Cotton's car, framing him.
No. Cotton murdered my mother.
You're not so sure anymore, are you?
Nice welt, sweetie. Let's go, Sid.
The killer's still on the loose, isn't he?
That's one of the charming things about this about the script, I should say, is that you have such a complex sort of backstory that keeps changing the reality of Sid's world and her memories.
Jesus Christ. An innocent man on death row. A killer still on the loose. Kenny, tell me I'm dreaming.
You want to go live?
No. Not so fast. We don't have anything concrete.
This is huge. You can't just sit on it.
I know. That's why we need proof. If I'm right about this, I could save a man's life. Do you know what that could do for my book sales?
That's a great line. Great setup.
Class, okay, Sid?
Hey, I haven't seen Billy around. Is he really pissed?
Oh, you mean after you branded him the Candyman? No, his heart's broken. Ow.
Stu.
I was trying to get every movie reference in I could.
How many references do you think there are in this film?
I don't know. I'd have to check the internet. Someone's documenting them. A guy named Bruce in Wisconsin.
You know, I haven't mentioned Matthew Lillard yet, but he did a magnificent job playing Stu.
Oh, yeah. Which, I mean, I admit to being, I think that was the most underwritten role in the film. To my own, I'll critique my own work. I felt like it was sort of it was the underwritten role. And he just came on board and ran with it and turned it into one of the most memorable characters in the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic energy, great intelligence, and later I'll point out a couple of lines that he improvised that are absolutely, showstoppers.
Which I take full credit for.
I love this location. Because we were not allowed to shoot in the high school in Santa Rosa because of script content, we ended up at this beautiful little community center in Sonoma County, which used to be an elementary school with real wooden floors and everything else that gave it again that sense of just warmth and middle America beauty.
Brain leaking. My mom was killed. I can't believe you're bringing this up.
I know, it's been a year.
Tomorrow. 1 year tomorrow.
I know, I think it's time you got over that. I mean, when my mom left my dad, I accepted it. It's the way it is. She's not coming back.
Your parents split up. This is not the same
This is
thing.
a great dialogue through here.
Okay.
And it really just puts Billy right on the edge between being sympathetic or being a total creep. But you certainly get, for what you find out later, you get an early glimpse of kind of his just kind of emotional coldness.
And your perfect existence.
What? Nobody said that. Sid! Stupid.
There's a funny story with that scene. Nev had an emergency, and she had to leave the set before we finished shooting the scene, and Skeet ended up shooting many of his close-ups with everybody from the first assistant to myself to actually he finally gave some of his best performance to a microphone stand with an X put on it where Nev's eye line would be. This is a great moment for Henry too.
I love the way, whose idea was it to do the scissors?
I don't think that was mine.
Heartless, desensitized little shit that you are.
It's great.
That scene was the other one that Santa Rosa just had conniptions about. The foul-mouthed principal, as he was referred to endlessly for about a month in the newspaper.
He called students shits.
Which has obviously never been done in the history of the world.
Ever.
She did it. What if Sydney killed Casey and Steve? Why would she do that? Maybe she had the hots for Steve and killed them both in a jealous rage.
What would Sydney want with Steve? She has her own bubble butt boyfriend, Billy.
Maybe she's a slut, just like her mother.
You're evil.
Please, it's a common fact. Her mother was a tramp.
Cut some slack. She watched her mom get...
This was a scene that at one time was going to be cut because it was so isolated, and I didn't realize how important it was till I saw what you did with it.
Yeah, we did take it out because it does cut perfectly to remove it, but it tells so much about Sid instead of her growing confusion about who and what she really is and where she's come from.
Where do you get this shit?
It's also very funny dialogue, but very cold. It's a very black humor you have in this. And Nev's reactions to it, I think, were just wonderful for the character.
Yeah, and I guess what I saw when I was writing it, I just sort of saw the black, cold humor of it. And when you're watching it, it becomes like a huge emotional moment for our lead character, which I never anticipated when I wrote it.
Right.
And that's when I saw it. It was great.
Now, this is a classic scene of who's in the stall in scary movies in general. I think the last time I saw it was in I put myself into a blind alley. Copycat, I believe, the movie.
That's
where
right.
They had it coming down. But it's been done many, many times, so we had fun sort of, again, pointing to one of the cliches of the horror films and then sort of twisting it a bit. In this case, having a costume that virtually covers up the entire actor playing the villain, one of the few things you can go by are the shoes. So we ended up having to have most of the suspects wearing black, large shoes for the rest of the shoot.
What I love what you did here is the feet come down and then the shroud.
Yeah.
Very scary.
In what appears to be a prank, several students were seen wearing scary masks. School officials have yet to comment, but this is known to be the same costume worn by the killer. 17-year-old Casey Becker and her boyfriend Stephen Orth have already lost their lives.
I like this shot for some reason. The light on it is beautiful. These are all known newscasters in Northern California also, so a bit more of the sort of reality we gave to it.
I know who you are, Miss Weathers. How's the eye?
It's productive. Is there a problem on campus?
No, everything's under control.
Well, of course, you're here.
Now, David is a huge admirer of Elvis Presley. I think you can see part of his love of that in this scene and a couple of the looks he gives.
You look awfully young to be a police officer.
I'm 25 years old.
You know, in a demographic study, I proved to be most popular amongst males 11 to 24. I guess I just missed you. Of course, you don't look a day over 12, except in that upper torso area. Does the force require you to work out?
No, ma'am. Because of my boyish good looks, muscle mass has increased my acceptance as a Sears police officer.
I need your attention now, kids. Due to the recent events that have occurred, effective immediately, all classes are suspended until further notice. The Woodsboro Police Department has issued a citywide curfew beginning at 9 o'clock tonight.
Looks like we've got a serial killer on our hands.
Well, serial killer's not really accurate. Gotta knock off a couple more to get that title.
Well, we can hope, can't we? I mean, we certainly don't have any leads. Have you located Sydney's father yet?
No, not yet.
Well, he's not a suspect, is he?
We haven't ruled him out as a possibility. If you'll excuse me.
I'm sorry. Am I keeping you?
If I may say so, Miss Weathers.
One of the things I was trying to do with the role of Sydney also is the father, the mother, the idea that the mother might have been a loose woman, and the fact that Sydney won't quite give in to her boyfriend, and just to try to tie the psychosis of what her mother was to, how it's affected her life today, and if perhaps she really did accept the truth about her mother, then she might already know who the killer is.
Right.
It's just
right.
We sort of, the father's sort of the obvious suspect, so you kind of almost rule him out because he is so obvious. And, but one of the things I was trying to do is establish her past, her father, her mother. Her mother was a loose woman, and Sydney's a virgin, and she's sort of her sexual life is sort of guarded by this knowledge of her mother. And if she accepted the truth that her mother, yes, indeed was a tramp, so to speak, then maybe Sydney would already know who the killer was. It's,
right.
It's sort of her denial system at full force. I was just trying to tie all the cliches together.
Cool, you guys bring food, all right?
The section here with the principal came as a result of Bob Weinstein. And after he had bought the script, he felt that there was 30 pages where nothing happened. And he called me up and said, "You got to kill somebody, Kevin. Someone's got to die. There's like 30-minute gap where no one's getting offed." So he said, "I don't care how you do it, just do it." So this is sort of...
So Bob, this is for you. We should mention Bob Weinstein.
And that little Fonzie moment with the hair.
Yeah, right. It gets a big chuckle out of the audience. But Bob was such an enthusiastic supporter of this film throughout. I mean, he really is. He loves the genre. He wants to take it to its highest level possible. And, I think he really recognized from the beginning how much the script could accomplish.
That is true. I think he got it from the word go.
Oh, this is me.
Cameo.
That's me wearing the original costume from Nightmare on Elm Street. That's about as much as I should be on screen, I think.
I remember before Wes would agree to do the movie, Bob had to talk to some lesser directors about it, and a lot of people were commenting on the humor and saw it as a comedy. And Bob would call me and say, "No, this is not a comedy. Tell me, Kevin, it's a scary movie, right?" I said, "Yes, that's the title of the movie. It is a scary movie." And so many directors saw it as a comedy, and I'm so glad that Bob was in sync and got the right director to do the job. I'm glad you finally agreed to do it.
Well, it's interesting. It's a very tricky mix, and I've done it badly in other films, I think. You cannot be funny when somebody's dying, as here. I mean, you really suddenly feel for this man, and he's a human being. But the tension in between is quite often distilled from...
I love that shot.
That was a little optical that we did. It turned out very well.
That was such a surprise. No one told me. I had to discover that on my own.
And speaking of Bob Weinstein, that was his idea. Why don't you go in and get a really tight shot of his eye? So I did that and then added the reflection.
Maybe your mom was just a very unhappy woman. If they were having an affair, then how come Cotton couldn't prove it in court? Well...
Now here comes the second line that I seem to get more flack for.
Right. I actually had a call from agents saying, "You're never going to work again if you leave this line in." But it's another thing, that just makes the film real. Because it's normally, nobody would ever mention these things in a film.
I mean, you can only hear that Richard Gere gerbil story so many times before you have to start believing it.
And it puts that sort of edge of cynicism on it that I think is a part of life today that, like it or not, it is just there.
If I was wrong about Cotton Weary, then...
Here's one of my other favorite lines, the Wes Carpenter line.
Starting to sound like some Wes Carpenter flick or something. Don't freak yourself out, okay? We've got a long night ahead of us. Okay? Let's boogie.
No, what was? Is there anything to that I?
No, it's just obviously from the film Frankenstein, and it's just one of the great classic moments in horror films, and it's a kind of a tribute, and it's also saying, you know, in 20 years, any film made today has the possibility of being considered a treasure, so don't trash it too much, critics.
There you go. I had never asked you about that, of the selection of that clip.
Yeah.
Werewolf movie with E.T.'s mom in it?
The Howling, horror, straight ahead.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, now that's in poor taste. What?
This is a great scene. Again, I have to compliment the writing. I shouldn't look like we're sitting here patting each other on the back too much, but it's a great setup. It plays with the audience's suspicions of who's guilty. I think Matthew is great in this, and Jamie does a wonderful job too. And the sort of awareness of films and how they are structured and what the cliches are is a way of putting the audience off balance, because they say, oh, they're aware that there are cliches, therefore I bet this isn't going to be cliched.
Stupid bullshit reason to kill your girlfriend. That's the beauty of it all. Simplicity. Besides, if it gets too
I love the extra. She takes off.
I went through 3 extras before I got somebody that could give a decent reaction. That was a very important reaction.
What, is she saving herself for you? Maybe. Now that Billy tried to mutilate her, do you think Sid would go out with me?
He kills me.
No, I don't at all. No. You know what I think it is? You know, I think it's her father. You know, why can't they find her pops, man? Because he's probably dead. His body will come popping up in the last reel somewhere. Eyes gouged out, fingers cut off, teeth knocked out. See, the police are always off track with this shit. If they'd watch Prom Night, they'd save time. There's a formula to it. A very simple formula. Everybody's a suspect.
Prom Night was very good. I mean, it wasn't one of my favorite films by any means, but it was certainly a film that really did have a red herring filled day. And since we were having a little fun with that, it's one of the reasons it got thrown in.
Right.
Because there was the sheriff, the janitor, all those characters were red herrings in Prom Night, and we sort of made fun of them here.
Now here's a framing and a staging that is very similar to the end scene in the film. It's kind of an anticipation of Stu over Billy's shoulder in the kitchen later.
Millennium, that was Wes Craven's word. Very nice.
I figure we had to acknowledge that, even though it'll be out of date in 4 years. I think, in a way, this is a millennial film. There's definitely a tone, I think, that comes over a culture towards the end of a century, and certainly towards the end of a millennium, where you feel like nothing is quite in the right place anymore. And you're sort of moving towards some grim, dark revelation. Whether that's true or not, I think that tone creeps over a culture.
Is that where the word postmodern horror comes from?
No, I don't think so.
What is postmodern horror?
Well, God knows. I think it's like existentialism used to be. You know, it's one of those words that are just thrown in all the time now.
Because if this movie is postmodern horror, that means that the next movie has to be postmodern horror.
We'll just call it P2.
This place is the town that dreaded sundown.
Yeah, I saw that movie. It's about a killer in Texas, huh?
Hey, Sid, just think, if they make a movie about you, who's gonna play?
Yeah, I think what the modern age was conceived to be, it was like, you know, where everything's going to be all right through technology. And postmodern, in the loosest sense, I think, can be that dream, that illusion is over. And we're sort of moving to something where we're having a much more realistic view of the way mankind is going. And it's not all going to be solved by technology. And I think this film very much reflects that in the young people's attitudes.
And the cellular phones.
Right.
And the fax machines.
Right, the technology is not bringing, peace and love.
Of your mother's untimely death. It's no big deal, Sid. You'll thaw out.
Yeah, but he has been so patient with me. You know, with all the sex stuff. How many guys will put up with a girlfriend who's sexually anorexic?
Billy and his penis don't deserve you, all right?
I had to be careful staging this to try to keep all the suspects alive, so I made sure that Dewey, instead of going towards the station, wandered off at the end of the previous scene and comes back in this scene.
I did.
And
Damn it. Dewey
This scene was one of the kind of fun inspirations I had on the set of when I was watching Joseph Whipp smoke.
You made the calls with the cellular phone. It's been confirmed.
And I realized that Dewey had an ice cream cone that it'd be fun to sort of coordinate them. So I told David just every time he smokes, you take a hit on the ice cream cone. Of course, Joseph Whipp had quit smoking about 10 years before, so he was like dying to be doing this scene.
She's with my sister. You want me to bring her in?
No. Not just yet. Let's find Neil first, make sure he's our man.
And here's the misdirection, the famous shoe, that the same as from the stall.
You stay close to Sydney. Don't let her out of your sight.
Yes, sir.
This begins, Kevin, I think in your script it was broken down to be scene 118, which went on for weeks and weeks and weeks on this cold, isolated farmhouse on the top of a hill. And at the end, when we finally finished shooting this whole ending sequence, we all had T-shirts made that we survived scene 118, and that's where we had our cast and crew picture taken.
You know, all the actors were harassing me about writing the movie almost entirely at night.
That's almost always the case, having done a career of making scary movies. You know, most of the time you're working at night in just the most miserable, cold situations imaginable.
I think it was Jamie Kennedy who said, you know, if I really wanted to break a cliche, I would have had the whole movie during the day.
Right.
There's the old beer bong, which I made. Is that the one that I...
Yeah, that's the one you brought to me, because I didn't know what it was.
And I, of course, knew too well what one was. So I went to the store and bought a funnel for him.
All of this end sequence was shot on location at this house. It was a very interesting house. It had been built by an older couple, and just as it was completed, they had both died within a month of each other. So it was completely abandoned, owned by the children that didn't quite know what to do with it. So we convinced them it'd be a wonderful idea for us to shoot our movie there.
Never know when or where a story will break.
Not much of a story here, just a bunch of kids cutting it loose.
Then what are you doing here?
Just keeping an eye on things. I'm gonna check the party out.
Do you mind if I join you?
Not at all.
All right, let me just get my code.
And you start to set up another little piece of technology.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
How many Evil Dead? Yeah! How many Hellraisers? Right here.
Fog, Terror Train, Prom Night. How come Jamie Lee Curtis is in all of these movies?
She's the scream queen.
You know, with a set of lungs like that, she should be. Yeah.
Tits. See?
Oh, get it. Hey, grab another beer, would you?
Am I the beer wench?
She was nominated. She was nominated for Terror.
You were not gonna believe who's here. It's that chick from Top Story. Gail Lanier.
You're underage, son. I'm kidding. Have a good time. What's the driving?
Dewey. Hi. Dewey. What is she doing here?
She's with me. I'm just checking things out.
So you did. Now leave and take your medium out.
You know, one of the fun things, Neville killed me for saying this, in the editing room, we discovered is that she has a habit of touching her hair. So if you ever want to watch the film just for the fun of it, keep track of how many times she either touches her nose or her hair. I told her about it, and she said, oh my God, now I'm going to be self-conscious for the rest of my life.
It's true that I noticed that on Party of Five.
Yeah.
She does touch the hair.
This is the favorite shot of many teenage boys. And how did you feel? Does this film live up to the way? I mean, the scene live up to the way that you had written it? Do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The idea of putting the garage, the dog door in the garage door, actually came from my assistant, because originally when I wrote this scene, I just had her get in a fight with the killer, and the garage door came down and got her neck. And ooh.
This is a standard cliche shot. So, in some ways, I'm working off of the cliches that that are used in this kind of scene, and then sort of twisting it so that it doesn't go the way you think.
But my assistant, anyway, had a dog door in her garage door, and she gave me that idea. And as soon as she said that, I just went, yes, that's it.
Yeah, that is a very creepy little thing to get stuck in. And most people don't realize, but they know sort of instinctively that those doors are really killers. Once they start up, nothing's going to stop them.
I love the day they were building it in the shop, and everyone was crawling through it.
Yeah, to prove somebody could get through it.
To prove that you could get through it. It's very funny. I found this to be very scary, actually, and to this, because she just turns around and there he is.
Right.
And up until now, the killer's sort of always lunged out. And
Spit on your garage.
I should mention somebody's name here. Dane Farwell is the stuntman that played the killer most of the time, I would say. And he brought a really uncanny personality to it himself.
No, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface. I want to be in the sequel.
As well as taking some hideous falls and crashes into things and being smacked in the head with bottles, as you'll see in a moment.
Randy, what the hell are you doing?
Those were two one-take only shots. The thrower was my stunt coordinator, Tony Caesar, who turned out to be a deadeye. This scene was just excruciating for everybody involved as far as this door with its aluminum side. I mean, cutting into your ribcage. The leverage was incredible, and Rose was really a game sport as well as the stunt woman, of course.
Was that another MPAA cut?
Yes, that was an MPAA cut. They made a shorten that shot. I always call that my Hitchcockian style scene because there's so many different cuts and angles to it. We shot on that for weeks, I think, and going out and getting little pieces of it.
Tatum, come on! Yeah, do you know where she is?
No, I haven't seen her.
Oh, Billy, hey.
Billy!
One of the fun things in this film is making sure that we had the people that turn out to be the killers accounted for at all times, so that there was somebody that was gone that could be doing the mayhem. And I think that's why so many audience members go back and watch this over and over again, because it's such an elaborate construction, and it does hold true. I don't think you ever cheated in the script.
What's interesting is when I set out to write it, I wasn't so concerned with that. I just sort of was concerned about who the killer was, what their motive was, how they were carrying out their plan, and it all fell into place. And going back in retrospect, I was like, yeah, it did all sort of work out. It was one of those sort of miraculous things that you just, because it could have been a very, very confusing hole to work out, to work through.
This is fun for me because you've got a situation where you've got about 4 types of media working at once. You've got the film the audience is actually watching. You've got people watching on video cams that are live. You've got kids watching movies and talking about those. And, it's like this wonderful sort of layer cake of realities and various versions of the truth that I think does make it kind of postmodern, if that means anything, but very much of a new way of constructing a film where you acknowledge all of the different media that's involved in our lives right now. I think this also is a beautifully written scene, and I think the kids did a great job with it, where you know, Skeet just takes you back and forth between suspecting him, not suspecting him, suspecting, not suspecting. And when you go back and look at it at the end, after you know what happens in the film, all the talk that you wrote about life is a movie, it's all just a movie, but you don't get to choose your genre, have wonderful sort of repercussions and echoes to the different interpretations of the reality of this film.
Yeah, I think I'm really scared that I'm gonna turn out just like her, you know? Like the bad seed or something. And I know it doesn't make sense.
It does. It's like Jodie Foster in Silence of the Lambs when she keeps having flashbacks of her dead father.
Skeet was always thinking, too, he would tell me between takes, did you notice I looked over towards where Stu's going to be coming out later? You know, so he was always keeping his character, you know, right, so that he knew inwardly he was the killer and checking out, making sure their plan was, you know, being arranged correct and the timing was going to be right. But at the same time, he's pulling off this very sympathetic, very real character.
And one of the fun things is to go back and watch the movie again, and you see all the little looks and the little nuances between the two of them.
Right.
Why can't I be a Meg Ryan?
I think this look that he gives over her shoulder when she says the line about right here is a wonderful look. It's very dark, and yet it somehow can be interpreted as just a guy thinking, wow, I'm finally going to get to home base, you know. It's a very complex acting job he's doing here.
Are you sure?
Yeah. I think so.
And of course, you're breaking the cliche because now the heroine is going to have sex, and that's just not done.
She's
In
working.
fact, Randy's about to give the rules downstairs.
She's working through the trauma of her mother. She's going to have sex, and now the audience is left to question, will she or won't she live?
Was Halloween one of your favorite films when you were a kid?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you'll notice that there was a girl was killed in a garage in Halloween, and we killed someone in a garage in Halloween, and the girl was popping popcorn in Halloween. She's popping popcorn. There's I sort of sprinkled little Halloween moments through this film.
That's why she always outsmarted the killer in the big chase.
And here's the famous rule scene where we lay out exactly what the rules are. Of course, as many reporters have asked me since, aren't you showing that your film is cliche? And I said no, because as soon as we say the rules, we start breaking them. We've already broken one.
Rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror movie. For instance, number 1, you can never have sex. Big no-no!
And there's a knife on the screen from the kitchen. You know, it's like this theme of the naked blade is throughout the film.
The way that you used the music from Halloween and the videotape footage through the course of this film, I thought was just amazing.
And here's somebody saying, I'll be right back, which means he's going to be dead, but yes and no. He's actually one of the killers, but he does die at the end.
Okay, I'll see you in the kitchen with a knife. Only virgins can outsmart the killer in the big chasing at the end. Don't you know the rules? What rules? You don't know the rules. There are certain rules that one must abide by in order to successfully survive a horror.
The sheriff just radioed. Somebody reported a car in the bushes down the road. I'm gonna go check it out. You care to join me?
I'd love to.
This is sort of Dewey's last stab at being a suspect, I think, when he puts the flashlight under his face. Something David did on his own, which I thought was a very nice little touch.
See, you push the laws and you end up
Excuse me, ma'am. I thought maybe we'd walk. It's such a nice night out. Got a flashlight. You're not scared, are you?
All right.
Great. Do you know what that constellation is?
No, what is it?
I don't know. That's why I was asking you.
Take it easy now, you guys. Get Chuck
So what happened to Tatum, Stu? She probably got pissed at me and bailed. Oh, I'm just kidding, man. I'm just kidding.
Kind of a repeat of their opening scene. And she does push him away, but then she shows that she's going to give herself to him. And we're paralleling, as you did in the script, the scene in the movie and the kids talking about the gratuitous tit shot with our shot, which we block. And that was written into the script, I think, to, again, to sort of disappoint the audience in a way that we're not going to do what you think we're going to do here.
Hello? Yeah?
And now we're into John Carpenter's music, I believe.
Holy shit. No. Listen up. They found Principal Henry dead. He was gutted and hung from the goalpost on the football field.
What are we waiting for? Let's go over there before they pry.
That was a problem in the script. I didn't know how to get rid of all the partiers. You know, we wanted to isolate our core group. And then once when Bob came up with the idea, when Bob said you have to kill somebody else, and I chose the principal, then there was the answer.
Right.
And in addition, I got to carry on that hard-edged, cynical attitude that children have today.
Yeah, it's funny and terrifying at the same time, the way they run out.
So is Dewey your real name?
No, it's Dwight.
Dwight? I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. Dewey's just something I got stuck with a long time ago.
Well, I like it.
I think this scene is so warm and genuine between these two. They had a real affection for each other. They became very close friends on the set, and it really shows. They enjoyed working with each other. And I think by the end of this scene, you no longer suspect either one of them, and they sort of swing over to being the good guys.
I don't think you're that bad.
No. I think that's just because you kind of like me.
You sure I come
I
back?
love his freeze ad-lib. It's perfect.
He does a couple great ad-libs. He does this thing where she kisses him and then looks over and sees the car that they were looking for. And she says, "Is that what you were looking for?" And he just looks at her and says, "My whole life."
I'm sorry. I'm on duty.
Is that what you're looking for?
My whole life. Damn.
What? What is it?
This is Neil Prescott's car.
Sydney's father?
Yeah. Jesus, what's he doing here? We gotta get back.
So at this point, Neil Prescott is back being a suspect, the father, and I don't think the movie stops in its sort of headlong pitch from this point on. It's just one hellish door after another opening
It's
up to...
the big chase scene,
right?
As Randy pointed out, that only virgins can outsmart the killer in the big chase scene, and now that we know she's no longer a virgin...
Who'd you call?
She's not supposed to be able to.
What?
But she does.
Well, I don't know. When you're arrested, you're allowed one phone call, so I was just curious. Who'd you call?
This is a great job of Skeet going back and forth between sounding like a kid that's unjustly accused and he must be the killer. I think it was a great stroke that you had of building this kind of tension, and then at the end, quote killing him, so that you remove him as a suspect.
You don't still think it was me, do you?
I just wanted to throw in one little last bit of information that would sort of throw you off, something that you haven't even mentioned before or touched on, which was the phone call from earlier at Tatum's house. Just shows that she's smart and her brain's working.
Now here's the threatening move. He leans in. Oh, he must be the killer.
To prove to you that I'm not a killer.
And you think she's realizing he's the killer, and instead she's reacting to this movement behind him. I think at that point the audience didn't know what to think.
Billy, watch out!
Ow.
Yeah, that is the best hit. That's again Dane Farwell, just a really remarkable stuntman. I've been using him ever since Serpent and the Rainbow. He did all the stunts in the fight scenes on there.
Help me, somebody! Help me!
I should say we had some great female stunt women on the shoot too. A little bit of K&B magic there, building a body that looked incredibly real.
Watch out. Watch out.
I think this was one of the most fun things he wrote for a director to do, where you have him warning the character on screen, and meanwhile he's giving himself giving the very advice he should be following himself. This actually was Skeet Ulrich playing the killer at this point. This is the one time that we had him doing that.
I'll turn behind you. Behind you, Jamie. Jamie, turn around. Oh, God, I didn't even turn around.
He's going from Cheetos, and now he's moved on to tortilla chips.
I think girl put on about 20 pounds for this role.
Behind you, kid!
Randy!
Behind you! Look around.
Their MPAA moment coming up here.
What? Wrong 30-second delay.
In the feature film, we had to cut out that moment when he looks back up into the killer's face, which I thought was such a telling moment because it was so human. And it's one of the examples where I think censorship can really make things more impersonal rather than having the reactions of what happens when somebody is hurt.
But trying to make that argument is...
Yeah, it's impossible.
A lost cause. The MPAA is just a much larger version of the school board in
Yes,
Santa Rosa.
Yeah, they're very similar mentalities, very similar. I love the way Courtney runs in this. She looks like she's jogging. Gives that wonderful sense of a feisty woman who's got to stand up to anything to get her story.
Lock yourself in it. Call the sheriff for backup.
Be careful.
I think this is one line of description in the script, and you turned it into an incredible moment here, where.
Well, the credit goes to David. Really, he just he made it so human because the guy's doing this sort of standard, thrust of the gun towards target, but he looks scared shitless, and that's just a great.
But your lay-in of the Halloween music
that's
and
true.
it's perfect. The timing, the cue, it's all right on.
Yeah, we got that on the second take, I think. It was just one of those lucky moments. Person falling down the stairs on the television in the background, right on cue.
Jamie Lee, thank you.
This, I think, for Courtney was the hardest thing to do. I don't think she'd ever done anything like it. And as you know, in films of this sort, there's a lot of reactions to things that aren't really there. So we had this tremendous sort of rapport going over a walkie-talkie where I was screaming all the time what was going on off screen for her.
911.
Let's go.
It was pointed out to me that by someone that if you're going backwards and you slam on the brakes, a body would not fall forward.
Well, see, actually, he was, by her starting up backwards very suddenly, he was just caught loose from being caught, and it just happened to be the moment when he fell down.
Exactly.
Okay, so I flunked high school physics.
Exactly.
This is an example of a stunt gone wrong that actually worked rather well. It was supposed to go off the road and flip and roll down the hill, flip. And instead it refused to flip and headed straight for the trees. We all thought, oh my God, this is the end of this stunt woman. But fortunately she was in a 5-point harness and just came out and said, okay, time for my coffee.
Yeah. That's the Sissy Spacek moment of the script, where the blood-drenched prom girl stands in the middle of the road. I was nervous on that stunt. I was there that night.
Yeah.
It was my first stunt that I'd ever witnessed on a set.
This shot we must have done 10 times because the knife kept falling out of his back. After a while, I was just furious at the damn knife.
One of the things I love that you did is you gave the killer this habit, or this sort of ritual of wiping the blade clean, which became very scary.
Yeah, very methodical. I'm not so sure that it wasn't Dane again that thought of that. He again was always thinking in character, even though he was just doing stunts.
This scene actually existed in an abandoned script that I first started writing when I was in high school. And the car, or the killer outside, and she's trapped in the car, and he's got the keys. And then I just, when I sat down to actually write Scream, that was the
And it went. Well,
and it went.
A great moment.
It's just sort of a...
It was a scene that almost was lost because it was, it could have been taken out and the action would have been continuous, but struggled very hard to keep it in the schedule. I think we got it in a very short period of time.
Jesus, we gotta get the fuck out of here!
Stop right there!
Don't shoot, it's me! I found Tatum, she's dead! I think Stu did it! Listen to him, Sydney!
Stay back!
Stu did it! Get Billy, shoot my Stu did it!
Jamie had a rock the size of a hen's egg in his shoe so he could get his limp right. I didn't know until the end of the evening when he practically had to be sent to the doctors.
I did it, Sid! He did it! He did it, Cindy! Please, I didn't do it! He did it, please! Please, Cindy, don't!
Fuck you both!
Please! No!
Ouch.
Open up! He's going crazy! Oh! Help me, he's going crazy!
Go away!
Sid.
Now, did the MPA did they object to the fact that of the intensity of these two killers, or was it the fact also they were teenagers?
It wasn't they
How
were
much did
teenagers so
that-
much, but it was one thing they said it's so imitatable because they're just using a knife that you can find in the kitchen. Like, hello? I mean, I think they're really more comfortable with a sort of Rambo-ish murder mayhem where people are machine gunning and stuntmen are flying off air rams, and it's all kind of unreal. But it's when it's so personal and intimate as this film was in so many times, especially in that ending scene, they feel like, oh my God, that's too real. We can't show that to people. They'll go out and do it. Which I think is really a gross underestimating of the audience's intelligence and integrity.
I agree with you completely.
Corn syrup.
That transition there was very tricky. For him to fall down the stairs and still be alive after being stabbed so viciously was, I think, a very tricky thing for him to sell, but he did it somehow, saying, it's okay, I'm stuck, bleeding like a stuck pig, but I'm okay, which he just threw in there. But of course, this is the big revelation that it's not a single killer, that it's two.
The reveal of the two killers was... It always concerned me because I thought people would figure it out, because there's no way if you go back on a second viewing and you realize that one person couldn't have done the killing in the first scene.
Right.
Or
I think maybe audiences just assume you're being sloppy.
Yes.
And at the end of the film, they'll be able to say, it wasn't possible for that guy to have done it. But at this point, they suddenly realize, oh my God. It's again one of those, I think, subtle realizations on the part of the audience that whoever wrote this is smarter than they are.
well, I just that satirical edge that was sort of weaved throughout the script suddenly becomes almost the entire motive.
Right.
It suddenly becomes what the film is all about here in the final moment. It's certainly what these two guys are about.
Right.
Why did you kill my mother?
Here's the over-the-shoulder business that was set up in the video store, and these guys did it pretty naturally on their own.
Here they start to reveal the motive, which there were two camps when I sold this script, who felt one camp felt that there should be no motive. It was scarier without one, and then another group of people felt that there should be a motive. So I took that note, and the end result was both.
Yeah, it leaves a wonderful sort of ambivalence about it all, because everybody's looking for one interpretation or another of what scary films do to an audience. Those that think the more scary the picture is, the more the audience is going to go out and duplicate that. And then others that, which I would include myself among, that think that they're a great release of a lot of things, including pent-up fear rather than pent-up violence. So this just leaves you hanging, which I think is the best you can say of any of these things. You can't say definitively what the reason why a person kills is.
Right. But I definitely wanted to make a point. All writers have something to say, even if how trivial it may be. And I definitely wanted to plug the idea that, no, you cannot blame the movies for violence. But by sending out that message in a very violent film, I think that that created the ambivalence that you're talking about.
Yeah, you're gonna love this one. It's a Scream, baby. Hold on a sec. I'll be right back.
That line was added after the name change, which was halfway through the shoot.
Right, yeah.
We had hats that said Scary Movie and T-shirts that said Scream.
We killed her exactly 1 year ago today.
Attention. Oh, what do we have behind door number 3, Sydney? Daddy. Whoa, hold it. That's enough.
No surprise here. Jamie set up in the video store that the father will probably come popping out in the last reel somewhere.
But he didn't have his teeth knocked out. This scene, from the MPA standpoint, was sort of the definitive reason why this film must be an NC-17. In fact, that's the first response I got from them was, it's a wonderful film, completely compelling, and what a wonderful example of an NC-17, which is their way of saying, you're going to die. But this moment coming up here, I think, is the moment which I've never seen anything like it in a film whatsoever. And it's where their entire plan, which is based on their casually taking a hit like this, comes falling apart because they have no clue what actual violence does to somebody until they feel it themselves, which I think is the most moral thing that could be said about this.
My turn.
It's also a wonderful shifting of Stu's loyalty to Billy when he realizes that Billy is not the sort of prince that he thought he was.
God damn it, Stu! Sorry, Billy. I guess I got a little too zealous, huh?
Give me the knife. Oh.
I've been in a dozen audiences watching this, and there's just this stunned silence that comes over an audience at this moment. Like they can't believe they're seeing what they're seeing. And I think it's just a wonderful, real moment that takes the whole film completely a million miles away from any sort of cliche situation into something that's just extraordinary.
These days, you gotta have a sequel.
He's sick, for fuck's sake. You've seen one too many movies.
Nah, Sid, don't you blame the movies. Movies don't create psychos.
I thought, again, it was a great moment where you see Billy's just out of control. He's not Mr. Cool anymore. He's just acting off a pure, violent, sort of impotent rage. And that line, I'm feeling a little woozy here, that's Matthew's line, isn't it? Was it in the script?
It was in the script.
It was in the script, I'm sorry.
That was one of them.
Houston, we have a problem.
There's an ad lib.
Yeah, that's his line.
What?
The gun, man, the gun. I put her right there. It's not there. Where the fuck is it?
Right here, asshole.
Man, I thought she was dead.
She looked dead, man. Still does.
I've got an ending for you. The reporter left for dead in the news van comes to. Stumbles on you two.
It's a great moment here, I think, for Courtney, and she really pulls it off, where she's suddenly no more Miss Glam. You know, she's just totally real, covered with mud and blood. But she's extraordinarily tough and real. Except she just doesn't know about safeties on semi-automatic pistols.
Yeah, man.
You were pointing out with that shot, Kevin, that every time we shot it, they would start giggling as soon as she fell on top of David, and we had to shoot it about 10 times. This little improvised moment where Skeet cracks his neck, which I thought was great. We put a sound effect in there to make it real, but it just gives that sort of sense of incredible tension that this character's under right now.
Baby, you're gonna love this. Shit.
I like the way they've slowed down. They've been stabbed repeatedly, and they're not quite moving as fast as.
Right. Yeah, it's where reality is settling into these kids.
Fuck. Should I let the machine get it?
Hello? Are you alone in the house? Bitch!
There's a couple moments coming up here that were either totally improvised or accidental. One was Skeet telling her Stu to keep, or Matthew Lillard, to keep her talking, and he improvises a couple great lines here, which are just stopped us in our tracks, and we could hardly stop from laughing while the take was going on. But his mixture of dying from bleeding and trying to keep a certain amount of dignity here, where he crosses his legs, I think are just.
Stu, what's your motive? Billy's got one. The police are on their way. What
I think amazing.
Peer pressure. I'm far too sensitive.
I'm gonna rip you up, you bitch! Just like your fucking mother!
And when Billy throws the phone, it stuck to his hands because it was so bloody sticky. So instead of hitting the counter, it hit Matthew right in the back of the head. And he just improvised this line instead of coming out of character.
I love that.
And this also is his improvisation, I believe.
My mom and dad are gonna be so mad.
Yeah, that was the ad lib.
Now here's an inside story in this. Skeet, when he was 10 years old, had open heart surgery, and there's one place in his chest where there's a stainless steel wire where if you touch it, it's excruciating. And we had him completely padded up on this so that when he gets stabbed by this collapsing umbrella, he would be protected. And of course, the stunt woman, because the mask is so difficult to see through, stabs him right on the spot, missing the pad entirely. Here you see she's right off the pad there. So it's a very real reaction.
I always had a thing for you, Sid.
Other improv.
In your dreams.
That was an improv too, wasn't it?
In your dreams? Probably was, yeah.
Sorry. Oh my God, Randy, I thought you were dead.
I probably should be. I never thought I'd be so happy to be a virgin.
I think that's such a great example of your balance between fun and fear.
Well, it's
fun
written,
and
I
fright.
mean,
The way you staged it and the way you. I just think.
Yeah, this finger in the wound business, I don't think that was in the script. It was just trying to think of the most, sort of intimate reverse lovemaking you could have. It's for her to be sticking her finger into him, into his wound. Just thought it was really incredibly perverse. And at the same time, just the sort of street fighting that they've been reduced to here. This next line, I think I gave Courtney, which worked pretty well.
Yeah.
Guess I remember the safety that time, you bastard.
Wouldn't you say this is some of the most difficult parts of a script to write are the very ending moments, the way the last few acts?
Well, particularly in this genre because of the boogeyman syndrome.
Right.
Are you going to give them the final scare? And
I know there must have been 10 versions of that ending and what she said, and
exactly.
whether she actually shot him or whether she didn't.
And that was, I guess, our way of having our final scare.
Right. The shot of Dewey was added at the last second when we were out there and had the thing lit. I said, let's just shoot one shot of him alive just in case the audience loves him so much. And sure enough, we used it and everybody was very grateful for it. And this shot here, I think we had a chance to do 2 takes. And if I'm not mistaken, this might have even been the first take. Courtney had to get it right or else we would miss the sunrise.
She did a really good job with it.
Yeah.
And this is all dialogue that was fed to her like 2 seconds before.
Yeah, 2 seconds before. Yeah,
we were all sitting around writing it, remember? The boom guy.
Yeah. This was actually sunset and just before our last night on this location.
Okay, let's take it back to one. Come on, move it. This is my big shot. Let's go.
I think we should mention, I'm sitting here thinking of all the people that we didn't talk about because they're not visible, but certainly Marianne Madalena and Kathy Conrad, the 2 producers, really just added a remarkable amount of material to the actual what's on screen with choices in wardrobe and just a governing hand on all the set dressings and everything else to make these characters really ring true as women.
And plus, they're a lot of fun to work with, too.
Yeah, great fun.
Actually, Dixie, all these credits we're looking at here, they bring back
Mark
names.
Irwin, fantastic job.
There's Bruce. A great design by Bruce.
This was also the first film I had ever shot in an anamorphic format too, which was great. Patrick Lussier has been working with me for about 4 films now. Very young editor, fantastic.
He's excellent, and I'm going to try to steal him for my first directing debut.
Right. In fact, after seeing his work, I think Miramax immediately stole him onto Mimic and put him to work right again.
It's been a long time since we've seen picture credits.
Yeah, I did it in my first film, in The Last House on the Left. I ended up with that, and I felt it was a wonderful way to sort of both give tribute to the actors and sort of bring the mood up. It's fun to go through a film and try to choose the 4 seconds you like best of the character, you know.
Lisa Beach did a wonderful job.
Fantastic. Great casting. Craven did okay, This is actually one of my favorite films of all the films I've made. I should mention Kerry Woods, also our other producer, working with Kathy Conrad from Woods Entertainment. Originally, they found the project, I believe, didn't they? And
yes,
took it to Miramax.
they're the ones who took it in and sold it to them. And I might want to add also that this is my favorite film that I've made too, and it is my only film, but my definitely favorite. But only for a little while longer.
Yeah, we're now, as we're recording this, in the first weeks of pre-production on Scream 2, which is the fastest sequel I've ever had mounted on a film I did. But it's still playing in the theaters, and we're in pre-production on the second.
And they're out scouting locations and moving the production forward, and I think I'm on page 75.
75 of the script. Yeah. I think it's interesting because as a sequel, it will be quite unique in the sense that it has a continuing character. The character of Sydney will be followed in the next couple of years of her life. David Arquette comes back, and Courtney Cox, Liev Schreiber will be in it, and Jamie Kennedy. And it also will have the same writer and director, obviously. So it's going to be, I think, a very lovingly cared for sequel as opposed to something that might be just knocked off.
And it's also a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun just sort of taking these characters to their next chapter. And I don't know. It was such an experience for me because it was my first film, and I got to work with one of my idols, Wes Craven, who actually has become a good friend, and it's been like a love experience for me. I mean, everyone I've worked with, it's just been a great time. I've had a ball with this. I couldn't have asked for a better first foray into movie making.
Yeah, it was one of those, I think, charm films. Just everything seemed to come together fantastically well. It was a great script. Miramax was wonderful in supporting us all the way. The DP is actually Mark Irwin and Peter Deming both did fantastic jobs. Patrick did a wonderful job editing, and the producers were great. I mean, you just go down the whole list. Everybody seemed to work together really well.
You're right.
We all really liked working with each other, and despite all the blood and mayhem, we had a great, fun time shooting. And I think it really shows in the product.
Looking at all these names, I just remember all these people and all the late nights and all the trips to the craft service and.
Yeah, one of those drivers. I did one untitled cameo in this picture where I did a shot where the ghost character gets hit in the face with a telephone at the very opening because we had missed a shot, and we had a driver do the off-screen hit where she reached. She had hit me in the face with the telephone. She damn near knocked my head off when she did it. This taught me my lesson for trying to be a stunt person. We have to comment on our final little no thanks whatsoever, don't we?
Oh, yeah. Don't Fear the Reaper, which, by the way, I guess was in Halloween.
Is that right? I didn't even know that.
It was in the scene where Lori and her friend are driving in Sunset to go babysit. And the Long Day's Journey into Night sequence.
I thought it was really a beautiful cover of that song. Very, very haunting. Used in the second scene, the first time we see Billy. And I guess I have to add that, to my knowledge, nobody's ever not thanked somebody, but we had to say no thanks whatsoever to the school council at Santa Rosa. Everybody else in Santa Rosa was wonderful, but the school board gave us a terrible, terrible time. Well, nice talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
I'll see you next time.
Alrighty. It's a deal.